Hello everybody and welcome back to Introduction to CMake, episode number 3. In the previous episode we talked about C-test and C-. In this episode we're going to talk about version control, specifically Git. Now before we get started I want to do a little housekeeping. Go ahead and open up your project folder and delete the build folder. And in your CMake list.txt file we're going to go ahead and delete this test. This test causes us to have an error, so we're just going to get rid of it so we don't have to deal with the error. Save the file. Okay. Now we're going to add a .gitignore file to our project. For that we're going to need Notepad. Now that we have our .gitignore file, we need to initialize our Git repository. And let's do a git status. Okay, so we're going to add all these files to our Git repository. And we'll commit the changes. Now open up your favorite browser and go to github.com. When you get to GitHub's landing page, you'll need to either sign up or sign in. I'm going to do this off screen so I don't have to blur out my credentials. After you've logged in, go ahead and create a new repository. I'm going to call this repository Hello CMake. When you get to this page, you'll need to decide if you want to use HTTPS or SSH. SSH needs to be set up beforehand, so if you haven't done that, you'll need to use HTTPS. Now scroll down, and you'll need to execute these commands. So go ahead and copy the first command to your clipboard, and paste that into your command prompt. And then do the same thing with the second command. Now we can refresh our browser, and you can see that we've successfully pushed our local repository to GitHub. Now let's go back and build our project. Okay, let's build our project to make sure everything's working properly. And let's go ahead and run the project as well. To do that, we'll need to set Hello World as our startup project. Okay, it looks like everything's working. Now I want to show you what the difference is between the experimental build and the continuous build. To do that, I'm going to delete this .gitignore file. Remember, the .gitignore file still exists in the online repository. I only deleted it from our local repository. So now let's run the experimental build. Okay, so the experimental build succeeded, and you'll notice that our .gitignore file is still missing. Now let's run the continuous build, and you'll notice right away our .gitignore file reappears in our project. That's the main difference between the experimental build and the continuous build. The continuous build goes to our online repository and pulls down any files necessary to make our local repository match the online repository, but the experimental build doesn't do that. You also have the nightly build. Now I have to admit I haven't used the nightly build myself, but the way it works, or at least my understanding, is that it works pretty much the same way the continuous build works, except it downloads files at a specific time. So if we open up our ctestconfig.cmake file, you'll see here we have the variable ctest nightly start time. What the nightly build does is it makes the local repository match the online repository at this time. Okay, that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to talk about CMake. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.